70-740 Lab 3, Configuring Disks and Volumes. In this lab, you will only be answering the questions, in other words, following along as I perform the lab, and filling the questions in and submitting your worksheet to Dropbox. We're doing this because this involves installing a copy of Server Core, which we're unable to do in ACE IT Labs, as well as working with multiple additional hard drives. And here again, due to our restrictions of storage in ACE IT Labs, you cannot perform this either. Were we in the classroom, you would be. But I want you to follow along, understand what we're doing, answer the questions, read through the worksheet, and use that to accompany your lesson. So Lab 3 is configuring disks and volumes, and in this we're going to be setting up a copy of Windows Server Core. We'll be configuring disks and volumes. We're going to be managing NTFS and share permissions. We'll be looking at creating and configuring and mounting VHDs, and then finally at the end I'll reset these servers. So I'm going to be working with our domain controller. I'll be working with SRV4, which I'll go ahead and tell to start now. But to begin with, I'm going to create in exercise 3.1 a copy of Windows Server Core. So in this exercise, I'll create a virtual machine and install the Windows Server 2016 Core server. We'll then use the sconfig command to configure that core server. Understand that the core server installation provides a command line management interface. Because the installation does not include the GUI interface, the GUI, the server core installation has a reduced hardware footprint and a reduced security footprint, and thus also a reduced attack surface. Unfortunately, it does not support all the Windows Server roles, and you'll learn about that in your Lesson 3 if you have not already. Now, we can't perform this in our ACE IT Labs, or if we were doing the MOAC Labs online, we would not be able to either. That's why we're doing this on our base system. Were we in the classroom, we would use our classroom computer to do this. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I've opened up Hyper-V Manager, and I'm going to select New Virtual Machine, and we're going to name that virtual machine Win 2016 Core. I'm going to press Enter. We'll select Gen 2. We're going to assign 2048 mega RAM for the startup memory. We'll allow it to use dynamic memory. We click Next, and I'm going to connect this to our London network where our other servers are connected to, and we'll click Next, and I'm going to say go ahead and create a virtual hard drive, and I'm going to change the size to 60 gigabytes. That'll be dynamically expanding, but it's going to start out very small and expand up to as much as 60. So our first question is, what is the format used by the virtual hard disk? This is question number 1. Well, we can see that right on our screen. It's going to be a VHDX. So the format that is used by the virtual hard disk is a .VHDX. Let's go ahead and click Next once you've answered that question. And we're going to install an operating system from a bootable image file. I'm going to click Browse, and here is my Windows Server, and I'm going to change that. I'm going to switch to Data Center, and I'm going to select that one. Or click Open. We're going to click Next, and we're going to click Finish. Now I'm going to right click on that Windows Server Core, and we're going to connect, and here's our screen that we see to start with. I'm going to go ahead and tell it to start. We'll press any key to boot, Once our wizard starts up, we're going to click Next. We're going to click Install Now. And once our setup options come up here, we're going to select, well, I'm going to say I don't have a product key. And I'm going to select Windows Server 2016 Data Center. Not the desktop experience, just plain data center. That's our core. We're going to click Next. We'll accept the license agreement. Click Next. We're going to do a custom install. That's how we always do our new installs. We're going to install to the drive 0. We're simply going to click Next. We'll let it create the partitions for us. And it's going to take a few moments for it to create the installation. We're going to pause the video while it does that installation. I'll come back periodically as the setup progresses. Okay, and it should be ready to reboot here very soon. I actually only paused the video for about a minute. That's how quickly Core installs. We're already restarting, and when it restarts, what's going to run is the login UI.exe, and this is going to ask us to set a password for the system. Should only take a few more moments. We're just doing our final configuration behind the scenes. And there we are. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to just close out of this. We don't need a high resolution window. We're going to say yes. Okay, we know the user's password must be changed. We're going to set the same password that we've been using all along. I'm going to hit Tab to move to the next field and press Enter. Password has been changed. Okay. We're at our command. Now what we're going to do is we're going to run the sconfig. This will allow us to configure our Windows Server core. We're going to set a computer name on this. So we'll do that first. And we're going to call it the same thing, Win 2016 Core. And press Enter. It says, hey, you need to restart to apply these changes. Let's go ahead and do that. Should restart fairly quickly. And here we are. We're coming back. We should be rebooting here in just a moment. And we're back in. Okay, and here's our, now instead of prompting us to change our password, the login UI says, hey, press Control-Alt-Delete to unlock. Well, what happens if I press Control-Alt-Delete on my physical machine? It's going to lock my physical machine. We need to press in Hyper-V to unlock a computer, Control-Alt-End. And there it is. Capital P, A11WORD. And we're back to that UI, that logon, that command prompt. So I'm going to go back into sconfig once more. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make another change. Let's take a look at some settings in this. You can do a lot in sconfig. First off, 9. Let's change the time zone. This was Windows is made by who? Microsoft. Microsoft is based where? Redmond, Washington. That's Western. That's Pacific time zone. So that's why out of the box these are all set for Pacific time. We'll set it for Eastern. So now our time zone's correct. Now we could join this to our domain and everything would work fine. Let's take a look at some network settings. We'll go to number 8. Did we get an IP address? Yes, we're on the same segment that we're running a DHCP server on, so we got an IP address. Let's take a look at those settings. There we can see it. We've got a gateway assigned, we've got a DNS server assigned. Now that gateway is a little different than what we normally see. Because I did some special things on this because I have 4 different routers that I can communicate through to get into different subnets, and so I've got a pretty wild setup. As you saw, I've got a lot of virtual machines here. So let's go ahead and we're going to return back to that main menu by selecting number 4. And at this point, We have a working copy of Server Core. Now we haven't installed any roles or anything like that. You know what? I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to join it to our domain, but first I'm going to set a static IP address because if this is a server, it needs to have a static IP. So I'm going to go back into network settings. I'm going to select that index number 1. We're going to set network address, adapter address. We're going to make it static. And let's use 172.16.0. Let's see, everything was up, and I don't believe we've used anything above 24. I'm going to set it for 30. And now, were we on a Class C subnet? I don't think we were. I'm going to verify that just, you know what? No, I'm looking at my DHCP. It is. So I'll go ahead and I'll accept that. And we'll put in that gateway address. That's the nice thing about showing your settings first. Now we can go ahead and set our DNS server. Press enter. I'm not going to do an alternate. There's our settings. Let's go ahead and return back to our main menu. I want to join it to, let's see if we can join it to our domain. I want to do D for a domain. What's the name? Adatum.com. Press enter. Who's an authorized user? Well, I have to put in just like this. And our password. Let's see if we got it. I think I may have typed it in correctly. No, I did type it correctly. Do you want to change the computer name? No, we already did that. So we're going to say no. And we must restart the computer. So let's go ahead and tell it to restart. And just like that, we're applying our settings, and it's going to restart, and we'll be in good shape. So just like that, and yeah, there we are. Let's go ahead and do that. Control-Alt-End. We're going to log back in. Now remember, we're going to log in as the local administrator. We're not logging in as a domain administrator. So I need to put in that same password that we originally set. And if we go back into that sconfig, we can see now we are a member of the domain. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to leave this up. I'm going to switch over to the domain controller. I know this is going beyond the boundaries of what we were going to do in our lab, but this is important for you to see. We're going to go ahead and get logged into our domain controller. If I go to Active Directory Users and Computers, under Computers, there's our Windows Server Core computer joined to the domain. And now, go to Manage, Add Servers. I'm going to add that Windows Server, that core. There it is, I found it. I'm going to add it. Click OK. I now have the ability to add roles to that. Let's go ahead and let's add a role. Next, I'm going to select the Win Server Core. Remember, every other time that we've been doing this, there's only been one server. We can manage other servers. We'll click Next. What do we want to put in there? Let's make it a web server. We'll click Next. We'll click Next. We'll click Next. We're just going to do all the common features. Next, and install. So we don't have to log in to our installation of Core. We don't even have to have the virtual machine open as long as it's running. And we can manage it. We can install roles. We can remove roles. We can configure roles just as if we were sitting in front of it. There, it's done. You say, well, how do you manage that? Well, what I could do Now I don't have, oh yes I do, here, Information Services, IIS. And what I'll do is I'm going to say connect to a server. What's the server name? Win 2016 Core. Press enter. Username. Well, I'm going to connect as administrator. I'm going to connect as the datum administrator. Let's see if this works. Oh, I typed the password incorrectly. Caught that before I pressed enter. Go next. Let's see if it'll connect. It may want us to connect as the local administrator. I don't know. We'll find out. Okay, didn't think so. Okay, let's change that. Let's change it and connect as the local administrator. We'll see if we're able to do that. Oh, you know why? I haven't updated our firewall rules. So it's not allowing us to connect. That's what our problem is. Okay, so this is not going to work. Okay, so let's go back over here. I know that that's going to fail. We've completed our first exercise. We can just close out of that, and we could do that later on. Our exercise number 2 is configuring disks and volumes. And to do this on server 4, what I've done is I've set up a number of additional disks, and each one of these disks is a 32 megabyte disk. And here again I said we don't have the extra storage allocated to us in ACE IT Labs. That's why you can't do this. So you can see there's 3 additional disks. Each one of those is 32. In this exercise, we'll create a simple volume, and then we're going to expand that simple volume. Remember, a simple volume is a type of volume that uses free space available on a single disk. Because it requires only a single disk, a simple volume is it's quickest and easiest to set up. We're going to go and close our settings. We'll access that server 4. We'll connect, and we'll get logged in. We'll log in as a datum administrator. And what we're going to do is we're going to right click the start button, and we're going to go straight to disk management. Now we could do this through computer management. There's a couple different ways, but that's the quickest. So right here we can see those disks that are not online. If they didn't show up, you might hit action rescan, and then you'd see them. So if there's changes you made and those changes aren't reflected here in disk management, do a rescan. We're going to right click on the first one and say bring it online, and then we're going to right click and we're going to initialize it. We're going to go ahead and we're going to initialize it with the GUID partition table. But before we do that, let's answer question number 2. So this is the second question you need to fill out. What are our 2 available partition styles? Well, they're right there on your screen, MBR and GPT. If you've got MBR and GPT written in for your answer to question number 2, let's go ahead and proceed. I'm going to go ahead and click OK, and it's now online and it's initialized. I'm going to right click on an empty area. This is unallocated space, and I'm going to say simple volume. We're going to click next, and then we're going to click next after we answer our third question. And our third question is, how large will the simple volume be? Well, as you can see on your screen, it's going to be 32,750 megabytes. That's your size in megabytes. So go ahead, put that into your answer for question number 3. Let's move on. We click next. Now, on the assigned drive letter or path, let's answer question number 4. Which drive letter will be assigned to the volume? As you can see on your screen, the answer is the D drive. Answer the question, we click Next. On the Format Partition page, let's answer question number 5. What is the default file type? Well, what file type is selected by default when we get to this? NTFS. The default file system, the answer for question number 5, is NTFS. We'll go ahead and we'll click Next. And we're at our Finish page. This is where we would take a screenshot, but we're not going to do that. And we'll click Finish. And we should partition and format pretty quickly. And it looks like it's already done. There it is, new volume D. What I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to delete that partition. Remember, volumes and partitions are the same. Let's jump back over to our domain controller. That's the end of exercise 3.2, by the way. It was just that easy. Exercise 3.3, managing NTFS and share permissions. In this exercise, we're going to create a folder. We're going to share the folder, and then we're going to configure the NTFS and share permissions for that folder. As a Windows administrator, you need to know how to manage files and folders, including how to configure NTFS and share permissions so that users can access the files that they need in order to perform their jobs while preventing other users from accessing those same files. This is how we control access on a network. So on our domain controller, we're going to go to Active Directory Users and Computers. And we're going to select the user folder. And we're going to right click and say New User. And that new user is going to be Todd Williams. As a username, we're going to use T Williams. As a side note, however you designate the usernames when you're creating usernames in your domain, stay with that format. If you use first name dot last name, continue to use it throughout. If you use first initial last name, use it throughout. If you use first name last initial, whatever it is, keep it uniform, keep it the same, don't change in the middle. Don't change what you do somewhere along the lines. It's going to confuse your users. We're going to select Next, and we're going to put it in our default password. And we're going to say password never expires. And yes, we'll select that. We'll click OK on that warning. We're going to click Next, and we're going to click Finish. We can close out of Active Directory Users and Computers. We can see our user account right there. Now, I'm going to go down and I'm going to open up File Explorer. And we're going to go to our local disk C. And I'm going to create a new folder. And I'm going to call that folder Data. We'll press Enter. I'm going to right click on the folder and go to Properties. And then we're going to select the Sharing tab. We're going to click the Advanced Sharing button. And we're going to say Share this folder. We will then click the Permissions button and allow full control by everyone. We're going to click OK. We're going to click OK. And now we're going to select the Security tab. Now, under the Security tab, this is our NTFS permissions. This was share permissions. This is NTFS permissions. Let's answer question number 6. Users. What permissions do users have? Well, we can see they're allowed, read and execute, list folder contents, read, and special permissions. Make sure you put that in for question number 6. If you've answered question number 6, let's go ahead and select the Advance button. And what we're going to do here is we're going to select the effective access button. Under effective access, we're going to say select a user, and we're going to select Mr. Williams. We're going to then select view effective access, and we're going to answer our next question, question number 7. And question number 7 states, which permission does T. Williams not have for the data folder? Well, T. Williams does not have full control, does not have write attributes, does not have write extended attributes, does not have delete subfolders and files, does not have delete, does not have change permissions, and does not have take ownership. So put those items in for your answer for question number 7. If you've got your answers, we're going to go ahead and click OK. You can pause the video, get your answers in, and then restart the video. I'm going to click OK. I'm going to click Edit, and I'm going to click Add. This allows us to add a user, and I'm going to add Mr. Williams so that we can control his permissions. We're going to click OK. With Mr. Williams selected, I'm going to select Allow Full Control, and I'm going to click OK. Once again, I'm going to select the Advanced button. I'm going to go back to Effective Access. We're going to put Mr. Williams' account in, and we're once again going to view Effective Access. Now, question number 8. What permission does T. Williams not have for the data folder? Well, the answer is none. He does have all permissions. There are no permissions that he does not have. The answer for question number 8 is none. We can go ahead. We can click OK once you've answered your question. We're going to click Close, and we are done with our exercise. Now our lab challenge is creating, configuring, and mounting VHDs. In this exercise, we're going to create a virtual disk and mount that disk using computer management. Understand that because virtual disks are associated with virtual machines, it would make sense that you would use Hyper-V to manage and create virtual disks. But you can also create VHDs and VHDX files with the disk management snap-in, or Windows PowerShell for that matter. The disk management console can be accessed directly or from the computer management console. Of course, the computer management console can be accessed from Server Manager, so we could do that here through computer management. We can also right-click and we can go to disk management. So we're going to do just that. We're going to select disk management. We'll go ahead and we'll make that a little bit larger. We've got one disk in this. Let's go ahead, and what we're going to do is we're going to select Action, Create VHD, and for our location, let's go ahead and we're going to type in vdisk.vhdx, and we'll change the type to VHDX and click Save. And the size we're going to change from megabytes to gigabytes, and we're going to make it 5 in size. Now that's on our share. We want to change that. I'm sorry, that's incorrect. We want to be here and do this. VDisk, and we're going to select VHDX. I'm glad I caught that. So there. And we're going to then select the VHDX here. It needs to be the same format as what we specified in our extension. It's going to be dynamically expanding. It's going to be 5 gigabytes in size, and we click OK. There is our new disk. We can right click and initialize. We'll go ahead and we'll initialize it as a GUID. And we're going to right click. We're going to say new simple volume. We're going to click next. We're going to click next. Question number 9. Which drive letter will be assigned to the virtual disk? The D drive. There's your question number 9. If you've got it answered, we're going to go ahead and we're going to click next. And I'm going to label it VDisk. And click next. And click finish. And there's our formatted 5 gigabyte disk. Now, as far as our computer is concerned, we now have 2 hard disks attached to this computer. But this is a virtual file inside of this one. Now, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to say sorry about that. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to right click and we're going to say detach VHD. This is the file. It says, hey, it's going to be unavailable until you attach it again. That's fine. And we'll click OK. Let's go ahead and all we have to do now is we need to go back into File Explorer. We'll go to our local disk C. We can right click on the V disk and say delete. We click close and we are done. Our exercise for Lab 3 is completed. Please make sure you've saved the changes, all those questions, to your workbook and upload it to Dropbox. Thank you.